I'm here with Mike from Pezzy Pet.
5 minutes later.
It occurs to me that I forgot to introduce the podcast. This is positive, positive impact, episode 2, and I'm assuming airing at some point in February or March. Luigi will edit that. So, Mike, you have like one of the most exciting, I think, product lines businesses, and I'm gonna let you explain it because you do a much better job than I will.
Cool. Thanks, Gabe. So my name is Mike Mitchell. I'm the founder of Pezzy Pets, and we make pet treats exclusively from invasive species. For now, we work only with invasive fish. There's 3 of them. There's the kopi out of the U.S., as well as lionfish and the Mexican devilfish or armored catfish out of Mexico.
So we started our own Kopi treat, which I know you know. Super envious of what you've been able to build. Can you tell us a little bit how you got started? Like, what was the first treat you started with, and how you jumped into the industry?
Sure. So it's kind of by accident. I used to live in Mexico. I used to live and work there, and I was working with the UN and with the local university on basically fisheries projects. I was a fisheries researcher. Came across what they call the pez diablo, the devilfish,
El diablo.
that was causing all these environmental issues in Mexico, and so we started trying to find a way to basically help these communities where I was working, incentivize people to eat it. Started small with a celebrity chef friend of mine doing workshops in our free time, teach people how to eat it, process it, overcome some of these fears. Very similar to what they did with the lionfish in Florida, for example, or the kopi and all over the Midwest. And just kind of snowballed from there. Eventually started working together with some fishermen and realized that there was a really good market in pet. And we came up with our first single ingredient treat a couple of years ago.
All right. So, one, do you have a pet yourself?
I actually do not at this time. I do not have a pet.
Totally fine. So what drives you to keep the business going?
Uh, it's really the folks that we started working with in Mexico, and it started with just a small group of 5 or 10. Now we're nearing 100, and I don't know. There's like this little fire inside me because I used to work and live there, and I was working across levels of government and with different business people and all sorts of stuff, and we got so much flack, criticism, a lot of naysayers saying that, hey, you're never going to be able to sell this fish. Hey, like this is an invasive fish. It's too difficult to process. Or hey, I don't want to eat it. You're not going to be able to build a company around it. So I think that's really what motivates me every day to get out of bed and to keep building this thing. Because at the beginning it was just like a few pounds of fish a week that we were selling, and now we're processing literal tons every month. And so it feels good to turn around and say, look at all these jobs we've created, look at all this fish that we've been able to remove from these waterways. And I think that's really what gets me going.
Amazing. I think just for the sake of informing our audience here, can you talk a little bit about like what makes a fish invasive, and what types of ecological damage these fish are doing? Just kind of like that primer.
Of course. So an invasive species is basically an animal, or in this case, a fish, that is now currently found in a place where it's not native to. So it doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with this fish. It's just a fish that is out of its native habitat. And because of that, it often doesn't have any natural predators where it's now found, and it can outcompete native fish species. And so these ecological problems can manifest in different ways, but it includes actually eating native fish species or their young or the eggs, outcompeting them for food, resources, space, stuff like that. And as a result, it can just throw the whole ecosystem out of whack. And I think the other part is that by replacing some of these native fish species, local human populations might not be accustomed to eating or consuming or processing these fish, and so that can create economic problems in these areas.
Love it. Is there anything that you want to promote? Anything that you're thinking about for 2024 that you want people to hear about?
Buy weird fish. That's the way to do it. Yeah. There. I guess really, like if you're feeding your dog or your cat salmon and mahi and tuna, like these big species that you're already familiar with, you can get the same nutrition while helping the environment and also helping small fishing communities by switching to a different protein, whether it's kopi or Mexican devilfish or whatever, green crab. I think there's a lot of really good, healthy proteins out there that are more beneficial for both society as well as the environment that you can switch to.
And then I also want to ask, so what are things that people don't know about this industry? So like, what are some things that you've learned in the last few months or years, really? Just yeah, hit us with some fun facts.
About invasive industry or about the pet industry?
I would say specific to Pezzy. So like, what have you learned through Pezzy that like has kind of opened your eyes a little bit in the space?
Ooh, let's see. I've learned a lot about shipping logistics and customs brokerage. So I think that when I'm done with Pezzy, I'm going to open up a customs brokerage to change that game, because I've never seen so much incompetence and apathy in my life from an industry.
The level of unprofessionalism, far too much.
So I think that's ripe for change. Sorry, gloves off. And then Pezzy, in the pet world, I'm in San Francisco. I think one thing that's been really cool is connecting with a lot of independent pet store owners, which over the last year, especially, I've come to realize is a really big thing, at least here in San Francisco. I'm originally from LA. I've been trying to expand in places like LA and San Diego, and there's not nearly as much emphasis or love, for that matter, for the small brands, independent pet stores, stuff like that. And so I think, yeah, that's been a really cool takeaway. And then connecting with all these folks in San Francisco and kind of developing a whole community around that in a big little city is what I call it, has been pretty neat.
Cool. What invasive species is next? Who's towing the line? You're like, one more of these.
You mentioned the green crab earlier. That's something I've had my eye on. Blue catfish out of the Chesapeake. Then there's Nui venison out of Hawaii. There's a few others. What I really, really want to do is I want to do bullfrogs out of the Pacific Northwest, and do single ingredient frog legs. But I haven't found anyone that is currently hunting them in mass. So I think that's a tough thing. But
I didn't realize there was a piece of bullfrog, and I'm also super humid. Like this could be a gig economy thing. Maybe this is the next startup. Your frog hunters.
yeah. I've thought about it. Every invasive species has its own unique set of challenges, and I think that's the really exciting thing for me, is figuring out these logistical hurdles with each and individual species, of how to overcome that.
I feel like I should have a bag of Pezzy so I could hold it up.
Yeah, we got Pezzy. We got some exciting new developments coming this year. One, we're working on a new packaging, which is fun. And then really just expanding our processing network in Mexico and the Caribbean. So looking forward to a lot of hopefully more clients, growth, and more fish out of the water this year.
I want to thank you again for making time to talk with us a little bit. Check out Pezzy, folks who've made it this far into the podcast. And yeah, until the next episode, and I will remember to introduce the podcast next time. I'm getting better.